Why is it that the loudest people in the room are the ones no one really listens to? You've seen it. The overtalker. The one who needs to explain, to justify, to fill every silence with noise. But here's the truth no one tells you. Real respect doesn't come from how much you speak. It comes from knowing when not to. And in a world addicted to attention, silence becomes a threat. A rare, uncomfortable display of control. Think about it. When someone falls silent in a room full of noise, everything shifts. People turn. They wonder. They listen. Not because words are being spoken, but because they're not. That absence, that gap, it's loaded with power. Silence isn't emptiness. It's presence in its purest form. Most people are terrified of silence. They panic when the conversation stalls. They rush to fill the void, not realizing the void is where the strength is. When you don't react, you force others to reveal themselves. You stop dancing to their rhythm, and suddenly you're leading the beat. Not through volume, but through stillness. Machiavelli understood this better than most. In a world ruled by strategy, those who talk too much expose too much. Speech is a window, silence is a wall, and behind that wall lies mystery, control, dominance. The quiet man sees more than he says, and that's exactly why he's dangerous. You don't need to shout to be heard. In fact, the more you shout, the more invisible you become. But when you choose silence, when you master it, people start leaning in. They want to know what you're hiding, what you're planning. That's when the shift happens, when respect stops being demanded and starts being silently given. So what if everything they taught you about being heard was wrong? What if the true language of power was found not in words, but in the space between them? You're about to learn why silence isn't just golden, it's lethal. And why those who control their tongue often control the entire room. Why do you feel the need to explain yourself? To justify every action, every silence, every decision? That need, that compulsion, is exactly what gives you away. It tells the world you're unsure, that you're still seeking validation. And here's the brutal truth. The moment you over-explain, you hand your power away on a silver platter. Every word is a window into your mind. And most people, they leave the curtains wide open. They reveal their doubts, their emotions, their fears, without even realizing it. Talking too much is like bleeding in the ocean. You're calling the sharks. You're inviting attack. And the more you speak, the easier it is to predict you, manipulate you, control you. Machiavelli warned us centuries ago. It is safer to be feared than loved, and those who talk too much inspire neither. Why? Because those who overshare become predictable. And predictability kills respect. People don't admire those who need approval. They admire those who don't need anything. Not your validation. Not your understanding. Not even your comfort. When you talk too much, you become transparent. And transparency is weakness in a world built on strategy. Think about predators. Do they announce their moves? Do they narrate their hunt? No. They move in silence. Precision. Focus. They don't warn you. They just strike. That's the mindset of power. Speak only when the outcome is already decided. What's worse, when you speak under pressure, you're not even speaking for yourself. You're reacting. You're trying to fix perception instead of shaping it. And that shift from creator to reactor is fatal. People may smile. They may nod. But deep down, they've already lost respect. You've revealed too much. You've said what you should have kept sacred. So ask yourself, every time you speak, are you gaining ground or giving it away? Because in the game of power, talking too much is like walking into battle with your armor off. And the silent ones? They're just watching, waiting, listening, taking notes, ready to win the war you didn't even know you started. What if silence isn't weakness, but a weapon? What if the quiet ones aren't lost, they're hunting? You see, most people speak to be seen, to be validated. But the powerful? They disappear on purpose. Because invisibility is control, and silence is camouflage. You've never seen a panther announce its attack. You've never seen a serpent give a speech. You've never seen a samurai explain why his blade is drawn. The ones who dominate move without warning. They don't argue. They don't defend. They disappear, and then they strike. People misunderstand silence. They think it means passivity, submission, shyness. But that's a projection, not a truth. The silent man isn't absent. He's calculating. He's not confused. He's watching. Every word you say is a clue, and he collects them all. Talking reveals your map. Silence hides it. In a world obsessed with signaling, silence is the most subversive act. because it forces others to wonder. What is he thinking? What does he want? Is he judging me? And that uncertainty, that is power. When they don't know your next move, they fear it. When they don't know your goal, they can't block it. And when they don't know if you even care, they crave your attention like oxygen. So the next time they expect a reaction, give them nothing. Let the silence stretch. Let it sting. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's pressure. And pressure bursts the weak open, while you remain untouched. Still, silent, strategic. Why does silence make people uncomfortable? Why do they laugh nervously, fill the space with words, over-explain themselves? Because silence is a mirror, and most people are terrified of their own reflection. When you speak, you give others something to grab onto. But when you're silent, they're left with themselves. And that is where their fear begins. In silence, people project. They invent your thoughts, your judgments, your intentions. They assume you're smarter, colder, more powerful than you are. Because mystery demands imagination, and the imagination always exaggerates. Silence becomes a void that reflects their insecurity, and that reflection disturbs them more than any insult ever could. This is the secret. You don't have to dominate a room by force. You can dominate it by presence, and silence is the gateway to that presence. The silent one holds the room hostage, not with noise, but with gravity. People adjust themselves in your silence. They shrink or overcompensate. They don't feel seen, and that makes them act out, all while you say nothing, and remain in full control. When someone talks too much, we lose interest. But when someone stays quiet, we become obsessed. Who are they? What are they thinking? Why aren't they reacting like everyone else? The silence becomes louder than any scream. It creates a psychological tension that demands resolution and gives you power. If you want to intimidate someone, don't raise your voice. Just pause, breathe, hold eye contact, and say nothing. Let the silence linger like a question they can't answer. That space will echo with their doubts and insecurities. Because when you're quiet, they're forced to speak and reveal too much. Meanwhile, you remain a riddle they can't solve. So the next time you feel pressured to explain, don't. Let them feel the silence. Let them fear what you're not saying. Because the greatest power doesn't shout. It watches. And the most intimidating presence is the one that remains still. Unreadable, untouchable, and unforgettable. Have you ever noticed how the ones constantly talking about power usually don't have any? The loudest in the room aren't the strongest, they're the most insecure. True authority doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't crave validation, because real power is recognized before it's spoken. And those who know they're powerful don't feel the need to prove it. Respect isn't commanded with words. It's felt in silence. Why do we feel drawn to the ones who say less but seem to know more? Because confidence whispers, it doesn't scream. The person who explains themselves too much is subconsciously asking for approval. They're trying to convince you, not lead you. And deep down, we all know it. Over-explaining is a symptom of internal doubt. A truly respected person doesn't chase understanding. They embody clarity. Think about the leaders, mentors, or icons you've admired. Was it their endless talking that impressed you? Or the fact that they could shift the atmosphere with a look, a pause, a silence? Power is nonverbal. It's in the posture, in the calm, in the ability to hold tension. When someone says, "I'm the boss," they already lost the room. Because respect that needs to be declared isn't real. Silence is the wardrobe of the powerful. It dresses them in mystery and calm. It separates them from the desperate noise of those who want to be seen. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you force the world to watch. You become unpredictable, untouchable, and that makes you dangerous, not in an aggressive way, but in a magnetic one. Because people respect what they can't fully understand. In contrast, those who constantly justify, beg to be liked, or overshare lose weight. They become common, readable, small. You don't respect someone who gives you everything, you consume them. Respect is born from boundaries, from control, from self-containment. It's not about arrogance, but about restraint. Because restraint is power in its rawest form. So here's the uncomfortable truth. If you feel the need to explain who you are, you've already lost half the battle. Stop talking. Start being. Let your presence say what your mouth can't. Because the most respected people don't sell themselves. They stand still and let the world adjust. And in that stillness, they're untouchable. There are moments when opening your mouth is the most expensive mistake you can make. In arguments, words are weapons, but also confessions. The more you speak, the more you reveal, emotions, weaknesses, triggers. People don't just hear what you say, they read what you felt when you said it. And once someone knows what rattles you, they can control you. Speaking, when done without precision, becomes self-sabotage. In negotiations, silence is leverage. The one who talks less has the advantage, because desperation speaks first. When you rush to fill the silence, you show your cards. You show your need. And neediness is weakness. It's the opposite of power. Imagine two people at a table, one calm, one rambling. Which one is in control? Which one is losing ground with every word? Even in everyday conversations, talking too much dilutes your value. The more you explain, the less you're understood. It's ironic, but the person who says little often ends up saying more. Because they choose their words with weight, not just volume. They let silence do the work that noise never could. And in that space between words, they gain the upper hand. Then there's social media, a battlefield of oversharing. People expose their lives, thoughts, emotions to strangers, seeking validation. But every opinion you post becomes a target. Every post is a bullet, aimed at yourself. Why give your enemies the blueprint to your psyche? Why hand over your emotional map for free? Sometimes, the smartest response is no response at all. There's a reason warriors meditate before battle. Because true strength comes from stillness, not from noise. The master knows when to strike, and more importantly, when not to. And sometimes, your silence will provoke more fear than any argument ever could. Because people are terrified of what they can't read, what they can't predict. And a silent person is unreadable by design. So ask yourself, how often do you speak out of ego, not strategy? How often do you argue to win, instead of observing to understand? How many times have you lost power just to be right? Because talking feels good, until you realize it cost you everything. Don't let your mouth become the exit door for your power. In a world where everyone's shouting, the real master watches in silence. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately sensed who held the real power? It's rarely the one making the most noise. It's the one watching. Because silence sharpens awareness. And in a world that speaks without thinking, the one who listens becomes a threat. Most people speak to be seen, but the observer sees through everyone. And that terrifies them, because people hate being seen too well. Observation is the highest form of intelligence. While others reveal themselves through their constant need to talk, you gather information, patterns, vulnerabilities, silently. You start to see beyond the words. You notice the tension in the jaw, the hesitation between sentences, the flicker of doubt behind their smile. In silence, you become the only person in the room who's actually paying attention. This is why powerful people often say less. They're always watching. And when they finally speak, they strike like a scalpel, not a hammer. Because every word is calculated, forged by what they saw, not what they felt. Meanwhile, the rest are lost in their own noise, too distracted to even notice. They're being read like an open book. The silent observer already knows how the story ends, before the others even realize it started. Look around. Everyone's dying to be heard. Everyone's screaming for attention. They post, comment, argue, interrupt, desperate to make their thoughts matter. But here's the paradox. The more they talk, the more invisible they become. The more you listen, the more powerful you appear. Because mystery and awareness are rare currencies, and you hold both. In a marketplace of noise, silence is priceless. Observation isn't passive. It's the preparation before the precision strike. You don't react emotionally, you wait for the perfect moment. You don't just hear what people say, you decode it. Their contradictions, their insecurities, their hidden motives. And when the time comes, you don't need to say much. Because a single well-placed word can collapse an entire performance. This is the art of psychological warfare, mastered by those who wait. While others impulsively respond, you collect data. While they expose their intentions, you remain unreadable. And that's the greatest power of all, to see everything and reveal nothing. In a room full of egos, the observer is the only one with control. Because power doesn't belong to the loud, it belongs to the aware. So ask yourself, are you trying to be impressive or dangerous? Because there's a difference. Impressive people speak a lot. Dangerous people observe, wait, and strike when it matters. Don't just exist in the room, study it. Don't just react, analyze. Every movement, every tone, every silence has meaning. And the one who listens the longest is the one who wins. What draws you to someone before they've even said a word? It's not their smile. It's not their charm. It's the unknown. Mystery. The subtle tension of, I can't figure them out. Silence feeds that mystery, it creates emotional gravity. In a world where everyone overshares, the one who withholds becomes magnetic. They don't chase attention, and that's exactly why they get it. Think about it. Mystery isn't just attractive, it's dangerous. It makes people lean in, guess, obsess. Because humans hate ambiguity. We crave closure, definition, labels. But when someone refuses to be fully readable, we project our fantasies and fears onto them. We don't see them, we see what we want them to be. This is why silent people appear more seductive. It's not about sex appeal, it's about psychological tension. They make others work harder for validation. They don't give instant access, and that restraint is intoxicating. You wonder what they're thinking. You overanalyze their looks. Their silence makes you do all the work, and you like it. Even in leadership, this principle applies. Charismatic leaders often say less than expected. They leave room for interpretation, for awe, for fear. They let the silence stretch, and it burns into the memory. Because when you speak less, every word becomes more valuable. And when you say nothing, your presence says everything. Now ask yourself, what's more powerful, to be known or to be guessed? The first gives others control. The second gives you the upper hand. Mystery is a tool. It doesn't mean being fake, it means being strategic. You choose what to reveal. You control the narrative without speaking. The mysterious don't play the game, they are the game. And those who can't be figured out can't be defeated. So stop trying to be understood by everyone. Stop offering explanations like apologies. Start using silence as a filter, a weapon, an invitation. Let people wonder. Let them feel off balance. Because respect, desire, even fear, all begin in the unknown. And silence is the doorway to the unknowable. Why do some of the most powerful leaders in history rarely speak? Why do their silences echo louder than their speeches? Because silence is a weapon more powerful than any word. It holds a gravity that no speech can create. History is filled with examples where leaders use silence to their advantage. In a world where everyone is clamoring to be heard, silence commands authority. Take the example of Winston Churchill during World War II. He didn't speak to gain respect, he spoke to provoke action. But there were times when silence was the most effective weapon. He knew when not to speak, letting the weight of his silence do the work. It's a subtle form of dominance, making others feel the need to fill the void. In the silence, they began to question their own decisions, their own position. In modern politics, silence continues to be used as a powerful tool. Consider the strategic use of silence by leaders during critical negotiations. By not immediately reacting, they let the other side over-explain, overcommit. Silence forces the opposition to reveal their weaknesses. It's a masterful form of power play, waiting, watching, calculating. The less you speak, the more the other side reveals themselves. Silence also works on a psychological level, manipulating the environment. People who speak too much expose their thoughts, their vulnerabilities. But the one who remains silent creates an air of mystery, strength, and certainty. They are not bound by words, they control the room with their mere presence. The silent observer becomes the silent manipulator, and in that stillness, power shifts toward them. The military has long understood the strategic value of silence. During moments of tension, soldiers learn that the quietest one is often the most dangerous. They observe the movements, the body language, the subtle shifts. In the silence, they can predict what happens next. The one who speaks the least is the one who's already in control. Their silence is their weapon, their strategy, their victory. The world is loud, isn't it? Everyone's screaming for attention, pushing for recognition. But in this cacophony, those who remain quiet become the true power players. It's the art of knowing when to speak and when to let silence speak for you. You don't need to announce your power when you already hold it. In silence, you command attention without asking for it. And that is the most dangerous form of respect. You've seen it now, haven't you? The truth that silence is not weakness, but a silent force that commands respect. We live in a world that talks endlessly, where the loudest voices often go unheard. But the one who remains silent, the one who watches, listens, and waits, they hold the real power. And no one ever sees it coming. In a world full of barking, the silent one stands as the true force of nature. The danger isn't in the words. The danger lies in the absence of words. Because words are cheap, but silence? Silence is the language of power. It's the weapon of the strategist, the manipulator, the master. The one who speaks little is often the one who knows the most. Their silence is the shield that guards their strength. And it strikes when you least expect it. Think about the moments where you've seen someone speak too much. Their words tangled, their arguments weak, their emotions on display. Now think about the moments when someone simply watched, observed, remained quiet. What was more powerful? The one who spoke until they exhausted themselves, or the one who stood still, watching, calculating? Silence is the ultimate weapon in the arsenal of the wise. It doesn't need to announce its intentions. It commands respect silently. Do you want real power? Stop trying to explain yourself. Stop feeling the need to convince others. Power is not in proving yourself. It's in letting others prove who they are to you. It's in the stillness, the calm, the moments where your silence speaks volumes. In those moments, the world will bend around you, and you will remain the silent master of your domain. We've been taught to speak up, to be heard, to assert ourselves. But the truth is, real power doesn't need to shout. It simply exists quietly, in the shadows of observation. While everyone else is shouting, the one who stays silent is the one who sees everything. The silent man knows the moment to strike, and when to step back. And when they do speak, it's with a power that no one can ignore. So, as you move through this noisy world, remember this. The most dangerous man is the one who knows when to be silent. Stop explaining, stop defending, and start observing. True power doesn't lie in the noise, it lies in the silence. In the space where words fail, silence becomes the strongest voice. And when that silence speaks, everyone listens. Now, I want you to ask yourself, when was the last time you truly observed without speaking? When was the last time you let silence do the talking for you? If you're ready to take control, to command respect without a single word, then start today. Don't wait for permission. Stop explaining yourself. Start observing, listening, and mastering the silence that others fear. If you've learned something from this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, the most dangerous people are the ones who never have to prove it. They just are. So take the first step. Become the silent master in your own life. Subscribe now, and let's dive deeper into the power that lies beyond words.